My son texted me 3 words the night before Thanksgiving. Don't come. Please. No explanation. No call. Just those 3 words sitting on my screen like a slap. So I opened my laptop, logged into my bank, and stopped the $4,000 a month I'd been quietly sending him and his wife for the better part of 6 years. The next afternoon, his car was in my driveway. But let me back up, because you won't understand why I smiled when I saw it unless I tell you the whole thing. My name is Eleanor Whitfield. I'm 66 years old, and for most of my life I believed that a mother's love was supposed to cost her something. The more it cost, the truer it was. That's what I'd been taught, and I never questioned it until the night I finally did the math. I live in a small ranch house outside Asheville, North Carolina. The same house my husband Tom and I bought in 1986 with a VA loan and more hope than sense. Tom was a high school shop teacher for 31 years. He could fix anything, build anything, and he had this laugh that filled a room. He passed 5 years ago this March. Heart attack in his sleep. No warning. I woke up next to a man who was already gone, and some part of me has been trying to fill that silence ever since. We had 1 child, just 1, Michael. After 2 miscarriages, Michael felt like a miracle, and I think I loved him the way you love something you almost didn't get to keep, maybe too much. Tom used to say I'd spoil that boy rotten, and he wasn't wrong. But Tom balanced me out. He was the one who made Michael mow lawns for his own spending money, who made him take out student loans even though we could have helped more, who said, Ellie, the kindest thing we can do is let him learn to stand up after he falls. I'd nod, and then I'd slit Michael at 20 when Tom wasn't looking. When Tom died, that balance died with him, and I didn't even notice it happening. It started about 6 months after the funeral. Michael called me one evening, and I could hear the strain in his voice before he even said anything. Mom, I hate to ask this. His wife, Brittany, had lost her job at the marketing firm, and they were behind on the mortgage on their place in Charlotte. They had a new baby, my granddaughter Sophie, just 4 months old. We just need to get through this rough patch, he said. How much? I asked. $2,200, he said, and I had it transferred before we hung up the phone. And when he called back 2 days later, his voice thick, saying, Mom, I don't know what we'd have done without you. You saved us. I felt something I hadn't felt since Tom died. I felt needed. I felt like I still mattered to somebody. That feeling, God help me, that feeling is what they sell you back, one withdrawal at a time. It became a rhythm. The rough patch never ended. It just changed addresses. Brittany found a new job, then quit it because the commute was too hard with the baby. Michael got passed over for a promotion and started talking about how unfair his company was. The mortgage, then the car, then daycare for Sophie, then a second baby on the way, my grandson Caleb. Each ask had a reason, and each reason was real enough that saying no felt like cruelty. So I set up an automatic transfer, $2,000 on the 1st of every month, then it crept to 3. Then 4 when they bought the bigger house in a better school district. For the kids, Mum, you understand. And I did understand. That was the whole problem. I understood my way through most of Tom's life insurance and a good chunk of my own retirement. There were the extras too, the ones that didn't show up in the monthly transfer. The $5,000 HVAC system when their air conditioning died one July. The braces consultation for Sophie even though she's only 8. Brittany's small business selling essential oils online that I funded twice and that never sold a single bottle as far as I could tell. Caleb's hockey gear, the good kind, because Michael said you couldn't put a price on your kid's confidence. I put a price on it. The price was my ability to sleep through the night. I told myself this was what family did. I told myself Tom would understand, but late at night in that big empty bed, a small voice would whisper that Tom had told me, plainly, exactly what he thought. And I'd shove that memory into a drawer along with his reading glasses because I couldn't bear to look at either one. Last year was when the cracks started showing, though I was too scared to call them cracks. I drove to Charlotte for Sophie's birthday in October, 3 hours each way, and I made it gladly. I baked her favorite, a lemon cake with cream cheese frosting, Tom's mother's recipe, and I wrapped a doll I'd spent way too much on. I got there and the house was full of people I didn't know. Brittany's friends, other moms from the neighborhood, everybody with a wine glass. Brittany greeted me at the door, looked at the cake and said, "Oh, Eleanor, I already ordered one from the bakery. But that's so sweet of you." She set my cake on the counter behind a stand mixer where it stayed, untouched, the whole party. Sophie hugged me, said hi grandma, and ran off to her friends. Michael was manning the grill, beer in hand, and gave me a one-armed hug that smelled like somebody else's life. I sat on a folding chair in the corner for 2 hours. Nobody introduced me. When I tried to talk to one of the other women, she said, "Oh, you're the grandmother who lives in the mountains, how nice," and turned back to her conversation. The grandmother who lives in the mountains. Like I was a feature of the house, like I was the deck or the fenced-in yard. I left before the cake was even cut, the store-bought one. I drove 3 hours home in the dark and I told myself I was just tired. I told myself they were busy. I told myself a lot of things on that drive. What I didn't do was look at my bank account. I was afraid to. Some part of me already knew. Thanksgiving was supposed to be different. I'd offered to host, told Michael I'd do the whole spread, Tom's turkey with the bourbon brine, the oyster dressing, the sweet potatoes with the pecan crust. I wanted my grandchildren in my house, around Tom's table, with his clock ticking on the wall. I wanted, for one day, to feel like the family we used to be. Michael had said yes. Tentatively, but yes. "We'll try to make it work, Mum." I bought the turkey a 22-pounder. I cleaned the guest rooms. I bought a little plastic kitchen set for Sophie and a remote control truck for Caleb and hid them in the closet. For 2 weeks, I felt like myself again. Then, the night before, that text, "Don't come. Please, don't come." To my own house, the house I was hosting in. It took me a full minute to understand he meant don't expect them, that they weren't coming to me. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted, "What happened? Is everyone okay?" The 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then nothing. An hour later, Brittany answered for him. A long message, the kind people write when they've been rehearsing it. She said they'd been talking a lot lately about boundaries. She said I was a lot to handle and that I made everything about my grief and my loneliness. She said the kids found my visits kind of intense and that they needed a holiday that felt light, not heavy. She said, and I read this part 4 times, "We think some distance would be healthy for everyone. Please don't make this a thing. Don't make this a thing." After 6 years. After the money I'd never once asked them to pay back. After driving through the mountains in the dark. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter. The turkey was thawing in the sink. I could see my own reflection in the dark window over it. A grey-haired woman standing alone in a kitchen built for a family that didn't want her. I didn't cry. That surprised me. I waited for the tears, and they didn't come. What came instead was a kind of cold, clear stillness, the way the air gets right before snow. I went into the room that used to be Tom's office. I hadn't touched it much. His handwriting was still on the calendar, frozen on the month he died. I sat down at his old desk, opened my laptop, and I logged into the bank. And then I did something I should have done years before. I pulled up the statements, all of them, going back as far as the system would let me, and I started to add. It took me until 2 in the morning. I built a spreadsheet the way Tom had taught me when we were young and broke and counting every dollar, column after column. The monthly transfers, the HVAC, the braces, the oils, the hockey gear, the loans that were never loans, the down payment help on the Charlotte house, the car, the 1,000 here, the 1,500 there. When I finally totaled it, I sat back so hard Tom's old chair creaked. $241,000 in a little under 6 years. That was nearly all of Tom's life insurance. That was the money he'd worked 31 years of summers and weekend jobs to leave me. He used to pat the policy folder and say, This is so you never have to worry, Ellie, so you can keep the house, so you're safe. I'd taken the money he'd left to keep me safe, and I'd handed it dollar by dollar to people who just told me not to come for Thanksgiving. And what had I gotten for it? A folding chair in the corner, a cake nobody ate, a text the night before a holiday telling me to disappear. I'd been buying their love, and they'd been happy to take the money and let the love expire. I sat there a long time. Then I opened my banking app and I found the recurring transfer. My finger hovered over it, and I'll be honest with you, every fear I had reared up at once. What if the kids went without? What if they lost the house? What if Michael never spoke to me again and I died alone in these mountains with nobody who remembered me? But that last fear is the one that broke the spell, because the truth, sitting there in the dark, was that I was already alone. The money hadn't bought me a son. It had bought me a customer. I cancelled the transfer. The screen asked me, "Are you sure?" I'd never been more sure of anything. I pressed confirm. Then I opened the text from Brittany, and I typed one word, "Okay." That was all, and I turned off my phone, and I slept for the first time in months like the dead. The next afternoon, Michael's car was in my driveway. I watched him get out through the window. He didn't bring the kids. Of course he didn't bring the kids. The kids weren't leverage when he wanted something this time. They were leverage when he wanted something later. He came to the door and he didn't knock. He sort of pounded it. I opened it. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept either. "Mom, what is going on?" "The transfer didn't go through. The mortgage is due." "Not, I'm sorry." "Not, I'm sorry. Shouldn't have sent that text." "Not, are you okay, Mom? You were supposed to host us today." "Just the mortgage. Just the money." "Come in," I said. He stood in my living room in front of the wall of photos. Tom holding him as a baby. Tom teaching him to ride a bike. Tom and me at his college graduation, and he didn't look at a single one. He looked at me like I was a malfunctioning ATM. I asked him to sit. He didn't. I asked him a question instead. "Michael, when's the last time you called me just to talk, not to ask for anything, just to see how I was?" He blinked. "What does that have to do with the mortgage?" "Everything," I said. "It has everything to do with the mortgage." I'd printed the spreadsheet. I picked it up off the side table and I held it out to him. He didn't take it, so I read him the number. $241,000. I watched his face when I said it. There was a flicker, just for a second, of something that might have been shame, and then it hardened into the thing I'd see a lot of over the coming weeks: defensiveness. "That's just what families do, Mom. You helped us." "That's normal." "Is it normal," I asked, "to take $250,000 from your widowed mother and then tell her not to come for Thanksgiving?" He didn't answer that. He started in about how stressed Brittany was, how hard things were, how I didn't understand the cost of raising kids these days, and I let him talk. And when he was done, I said the thing I'd decided at 2 a.m. "I'm not sending any more money. Not the monthly transfer. Not the emergencies. Not the extras. You're 41 years old, Michael. You have a college degree your father and I helped you get. You'll figure it out the way everybody else does." He told me I was being ridiculous. He told me Brittany was right, that I was a lot, that this proved it. He told me I'd regret this when I was old and needed somebody and there was nobody. He actually said that in my own living room to my face. The same week he told me not to come for the holiday. I just looked at him. "Drive safe," I said. He left. And I want to tell you I felt strong and free, but mostly I felt sick. I sat in Tom's chair and I shook for an hour. Then I called the one person I knew would tell me the truth. My sister Carol. She's 2 years older than me, lives in Raleigh, widowed too. When I told her everything, the money, the text, the number, she was quiet for a long moment and then she said, "Ellie, $241,000. Honey, why didn't you say something?" Because I was ashamed, I said. And it was the first true thing I'd said out loud in years. Carol had been through her own version. Her daughter, years back, who treated her like a bank until Carol finally said no, and there'd been a terrible stretch of silence, and then slowly, a real relationship had grown back in its place. It got worse before it got better, she warned me. They don't go quietly, Ellie. They'll make you the villain. Brace yourself. She was right. Within 3 days, my phone was a war zone. Voicemails from Michael, angry then pleading then cold. Texts from Brittany about how I was punishing the children for an adult disagreement. And then the calls from other people started. My cousin Linda called, worried, said she'd heard I was having a hard time and acting differently. Brittany had been telling people I was confused, isolated, maybe declining. The word she'd used, I found out later, was paranoid. Apparently, I was a frightened old woman, imagining that my generous children were taking advantage of me. I almost let it get to me. And then I got mad. I sent Linda the spreadsheet. I sent her the screenshot of the Thanksgiving text. The phone went quiet for 10 minutes, and then Linda called back and said, "Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." The way Brittany made it sound. And just like that, the tide started to turn, person by person, as the truth made the rounds behind the lie. But the thing that genuinely frightened me came about a month later. I got a certified letter and then a call from a lawyer I'd found, a kind man named Walter Briggs who'd done Tom's and my will years ago. Michael and Brittany had filed a petition with the court. They were asking to be made my financial guardians. They claimed I was showing signs of cognitive decline, that I was making erratic and self-destructive financial decisions, that I needed to be protected from myself. Protected from myself. By the people who drained me. Walter explained it plainly. They'd submitted a letter from some doctor who'd never examined me, just gone off what the family reported. They'd written statements saying I'd become paranoid and accusatory, that I was isolating, that my judgment couldn't be trusted. If a judge believed them, they would control my money, my house, everything. I'd need their permission to buy groceries. I'll tell you, that was the night I understood what I was really dealing with. This wasn't a son who'd gotten in over his head and lashed out. This was a calculated attempt to take by force what I'd stopped giving freely. They'd rather have me declared incompetent than hear the word no. Walter was wonderful. "Eleanor," he said, "we're going to get you an independent evaluation from a doctor of our choosing, a real one. And we are going to bury this petition. But I need you to do something for me. Document everything, every call, every text, every word they say. Save it all." So I did. I bought a fresh notebook and I logged it all. Date, time, what was said. I saved every voicemail. I had no idea I was building a case, but I was. The independent evaluation took 2 full afternoons with a Dr. Reyes, a geriatric psychiatrist with sharp eyes and a gentle manner. She tested my memory, my reasoning, had me draw clocks and recall stories and explain my own financial choices. And at the end, she set down her pen and said, "Mrs. Whitfield, there's nothing wrong with your mind. Stopping that money was one of the most rational things I've heard all month. I'll be telling the court exactly that." I cried in her office, not from sadness, from the relief of someone finally saying out loud that I wasn't crazy for wanting to be treated like a human being. The hearing was in January, in a cold little courtroom in the county building. Michael and Brittany sat with their lawyer, dressed up, not looking at me. I sat with Walter and Carol, who'd driven in from Raleigh and held my hand the whole time. I won't drag you through all of it. I'll tell you the moment that mattered. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, read through their petition and Dr. Reyes's evaluation, and then she looked over her glasses at Brittany and asked her to explain the timeline. When did Mrs. Whitfield's cognitive decline begin? Brittany said it had been gradual over the past year. And the judge said, "And the monthly transfers of $4,000 from Mrs. Whitfield to you and your husband. When did those stop?" The room went very quiet. Brittany said in November. "So," the judge said, Your mother-in-law's mind was sound enough to send you $4,000 a month and only became unsound the month she stopped. She set the papers down. Petition denied. And I'm ordering the petitioners to pay Mrs. Whitfield's legal costs. This is, frankly, one of the more brazen things I've seen, and I'd encourage everyone in this room to think hard about who they've become. The gavel came down. Brittany made a noise like a kettle. Michael put his head in his hands, and I walked out of that courtroom into the cold January sun. And Carol squeezed my arm, and I felt the strangest thing. I felt like I could breathe all the way to the bottom of my lungs for the first time since Tom died. I thought it was over. It was the beginning of something I never expected. About 2 weeks after the hearing, I got a message on Facebook from a woman I didn't know, Megan. She said she was Michael's co-worker and she was sorry to reach out like this, but she thought I should know. Michael was about to be fired. He'd been borrowing from a company account to cover what she called his situation. His situation, it turned out, was that he hadn't lost his promotion to office politics at all. He'd been demoted after coming in drunk more than once. The $4,000 a month from me hadn't been going to mortgages and braces. A lot of it had been going to a bottle, and to the lies required to keep a bottle hidden from a wife and 2 kids. I sat with that for a long time. My boy. My miracle baby. An alcoholic like his grandfather had been, the grandfather Tom had sworn Michael would never turn out like, and I'd been pouring money on the fire and calling it love. That spring, the silence between us was total. I didn't reach out. Walter had advised against it, and my own heart, freshly healing, couldn't take any more. I built a different life in the meantime, almost by accident. Carol came to stay for a month, and we planted a vegetable garden in Tom's old plot. I joined a grief group at the Methodist church and met women who understood the particular loneliness of outliving the person who knew you best. I started teaching a free computer class at the senior center on Wednesdays, helping folks my age video call their grandkids and dodge the scams that prey on people like us. People like I'd almost been. I learned to fix the things Tom used to fix. I caulked the bathtub. I changed the filter on the furnace. Every small thing I did myself felt like a brick laid in the foundation of a self I'd let crumble. And then, in late May, there was a knock at my door on a Sunday morning. I opened it, and Michael was standing on the porch, and I almost didn't recognize him. He was thin, grey-faced, his hands shaking slightly at his sides, but his eyes were clear. That's the thing I noticed first. His eyes were clear in a way they hadn't been in years. "Mom," he said, "can I talk to you? I'm not here for money. I swear to God, I'm not here for money." I let him in. We sat at Tom's table, and my son told me the truth for the first time in a decade. He was 61 days sober. Brittany had left him, taken the kids to her mother's in Charlotte. He'd lost the job. He'd hit a bottom I won't describe, because it isn't mine to tell. But it was a real bottom, the kind people don't always come back from. And in rehab, in the rooms, they'd made him write a list of the people he'd hurt. "Your name was at the top, Mum," he said, and his voice cracked clean in half. "Not Dad's, not Brittany's, yours, because you loved me the most and I treated you the worst. I'm going to tell you something honest. Part of me wanted to leap up and make him coffee and fix it, the old reflex, the one that had cost me $250,000 and nearly my mind. But I'd learned something in those cold months. I'd learned the difference between guilt and change. So I didn't leap up. I said, "I'm glad you're sober, Michael. 61 days is real. I mean that." And then I said, "But I need you to hear me. I will support your recovery in every way that isn't a checkbook. I'll go to a family meeting. I'll answer the phone when you call as long as it's not about money. I'll be at your 1 year if you make it, and I'll be proud. But I will never send you another dollar as long as I live. Not for an emergency, not ever. That part is finished." He nodded. He was crying. I know, I don't deserve it anyway. It's not about deserving, I said. It's about the fact that the money was never love. It was the thing that let both of us avoid the truth. I'm done buying you, and you're done buying my silence. If we build something now, it's going to be the real thing, or it's going to be nothing. We talked for 2 hours. He didn't ask for a thing. When he left, he hugged me, and it was a real hug. The kind that means something, not the one-arm thing from Sophie's birthday. And I let myself hold it. I'd love to tell you Brittany came around too. But life isn't that tidy. She filed for divorce that summer. Michael, to his credit, didn't fight her for much, just for the right to be in his children's lives, which he's earning back slowly, supervised at first, then not. I see Sophie and Caleb most every other weekend now. Michael drives them up himself. We bake the lemon cake, Tom's mother's recipe. And this time everybody eats it. I changed my will. Walter helped me set up a trust for Sophie and Caleb that they'll receive when they're 25. Money Michael and Brittany can't touch. Some went to Carol's grandkids, who actually call me. Some to the senior centre. Michael gets the house when I'm gone, and a letter I've already written, and not $1 more. And he knows it, and he's told me it's right. It's been a little over a year now. Michael just passed 14 months sober. He's got a job at a hardware store, less money than before, honest money. And he says working with his hands makes him feel close to his dad. He calls me on Sunday evenings every Sunday and he asks how I am, and he listens to the answer. Last week he asked me to teach him Tom's bourbon brine for the turkey. He's hosting Thanksgiving this year at his little rental, and he asked me to come. I said yes, I'm bringing the cake. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, cutting him off the way I did. And I tell them the truth. I don't regret the no. I only regret that it took me 6 years and Tom's life insurance and a courtroom to find it. I lost a fortune. I won't pretend I didn't. But I got my son back, the real one, not the customer, and I got myself back, which it turns out was worth more than all of it. The garden's coming in now. Tom's tomatoes. The ones I planted with my own 2 hands. I sit out there in the evenings, and I think about that grey-haired woman I saw in the dark window the night before Thanksgiving. The one who thought love was supposed to bleed her dry. I wish I could reach back and tell her what I know now. You are not a bank. You are not a burden. You are not the grandmother who lives in the mountains. You are a whole person, and you are allowed to be loved for nothing more than that. I finally believe it. And every Sunday when the phone rings, I believe it a little more. For 6 years, I thought love was something you proved by how much it drained you, and that belief is exactly what nearly emptied me out. Every dollar I wired to Michael and Brittany was me trying to buy back a feeling. The feeling of being needed, and the cruel arithmetic of it is simple now that I can finally see it. The more I gave, the less they had to give in return, until the only thing tying us together was a monthly transfer. Cause and effect. I taught my son that my worst lived in my checkbook, and he learned the lesson so well he tried to have a judge declare me incompetent rather than hear me say no. None of what happened was random. It grew link by link. Out of every 20 I'd slipped him behind Tom's back. Every excuse I'd accepted, every time I'd called my own fear generosity. What turned it around wasn't anger, though Lord knows I had plenty. It was finally being willing to look. I sat in Tom's chair at 2 a.m, and I added up the truth instead of hiding from it. And that clear-eyed honesty did more for me than all the praying I'd done at that empty bedside. Seeing a thing as it really is, not as you wish it were, is its own kind of courage. I'd spent years choosing comfort over clarity, and clarity, when I finally let it in, set me free. But seeing the truth and acting on it are 2 different muscles. Knowing I'd been used didn't fix anything. Pressing that cancel button did. Sitting through a cold courtroom while my own child called me crazy did. Saying, I'm glad you're sober and I will never send you another dollar in the same breath. And meaning both halves that took a backbone I didn't know I had until I needed it. Strength isn't loud. Most days, it's just the quiet refusal to set yourself on fire one more time, to keep someone else warm. And here's the part I'd want any tired mother to hear. Holding a firm line is not the opposite of love. It's the deepest form of it. The kindest thing I ever did for Michael was stop rescuing him, because the rescuing was what kept him drowning. Doing right by someone sometimes means doing the thing that makes them furious. I had to learn the difference between being good and being a doormat. And they're not the same, no matter who tells you otherwise. I lost a fortune. I won't pretend that doesn't sting. But I got back a son who calls on Sundays and asks how I am. And I got back myself, which it turns out was the more expensive of the two to lose. So if you take anything from an old woman in the North Carolina mountains, take this. Be honest enough to look at your own life. Be brave enough to change what you find. And never, ever confuse what you can give with what you are worth. You are always enough. Just you.